So we're at the start of what's probably going to be a very interesting week, and there are compelling things and funny things going on. One that's funny is funny not because Joe Biden is the be-all, end-all of fixing America or anything like it, but it's funny because it's a sign of just how terribly the Republican Party has performed, even for many Republicans over the last 18 months. Joe Biden's approval rating in Texas among Texas voters is higher than Texas's own Republican Governor Greg Abbott, if you can imagine. The poll conducted by the University of Houston Hobby School of Public Affairs has Joe Biden at a 41% approval rating in Texas, whereas the Republican Governor Greg Abbott is only at 39% approval in the state of Texas. Now, there's a bunch of interesting layers to this story, and I hope to get to all of them, or at least all that I'm aware of. The first is that Greg Abbott is going to be up for re-election in the year 2022, and there's talk of Beto O'Rourke challenging him. We saw Texas closer in the November of 2020 presidential election than it's been in a very long time. And if these numbers remain, where Joe Biden is more popular than Greg Abbott in Texas, it could be a really tough reelection, and it could be an opportunity for a Democratic governor to actually win the state of Texas. That would be fascinating to see. Now, second, this confirms that the high approval that Joe Biden is experiencing nationally, we saw it at 63% early last week or the week before, that is being supported not just by Democratic approval of Joe Biden in blue states, but it's also being supported by higher than typical approval for a Democratic president from voters in red states, including the state of Texas. And then the third aspect of this is that right now, at least, much of what Biden has done and much of what his approval is riding on is his coronavirus response. I've been saying for weeks now, just move forward with the 1.9 trillion COVID relief package that's been proposed by Biden and by Democrats. Don't negotiate with these bad faith Republicans. Let them all vote against it if that's what they want to do. And so far, Democrats are moving in that direction. The approval numbers for Biden overall and on COVID response and the support of the COVID relief bill, to me, signal that Republicans are voting against the bill at their own peril if that's what they do. What I mean by that is, this COVID relief bill that Joe Biden and Democrats want is popular enough with Republicans that if Republican senators and members of Congress all want to oppose it, they are taking on significant political risk for doing so. Now, one important caveat about Abbott's approval: some Republicans in Texas don't like Greg Abbott because he did do a mask mandate. So it's not all as simple as Biden has a higher approval because Abbott didn't do enough. There are people upset with Abbott in Texas because he didn't do enough. And there are people upset with Abbott because he did too much. Even though he did a mask mandate, it was basically toothless. And it's sort of like the worst of both worlds. But the point here is that even in Texas, Joe Biden's approval higher than Republican Governor Greg Abbott's. And that's more evidence that the country is crossing party lines on what they want to see as far as COVID response is concerned. And if Republicans become attached to, we stood in the way of COVID and we stood in the way of you getting any money, it could continue to massacre them into 2022. And remember that under Donald Trump, Republicans lost the House in 2018. They lost the Senate and the White House in 2020. They saw Georgia go blue and Texas go closer to blue in the presidential election. And the Republican Party really is at risk here. And especially now with Donald Trump considering launching this new political party, it is a very tender situation for the party. We'll talk a little bit more later about the willingness of the Republican electorate to abandon the party and to go with Trump. We have some new polling about that. But as has been the theme with the Republican Party for the last 4 years, much of this is unforced errors. This all goes back to, if Trump had just let Fauci run the show, had gotten behind guidelines, had offered American flag masks for Republicans to buy and wear, he would have been reelected. Republicans would probably still have the Senate. Now we're talking about a Democratic president with a higher approval rating in Texas than the Republican governor. Unbelievable stuff.